Hey everyone, this is Colleen Perfect, Program Assistant with Purdue Extension in Dearborn County. In this video, I really want to talk about the importance of planting a purposeful garden. With an aeroponic garden like this one behind me, you need to expect that your plants are going to grow. Even if you've never had success with gardening in the past, I'm telling you, these gardens are a whole different ballgame, and they are going to produce. Your gardens are going, like this one back here, it's going to produce a lot of produce. And so it's really helpful to know from the very beginning, before you decide to plant, it's helpful to know what you're going to do with the produce that you grow. When I think back to the first couple times that I ever experienced growing with an aeroponic garden like this one, I was so excited, I just threw in a bunch of random seeds. And that was fun, but I didn't know what to do with what I grew after I grew it. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense to have a plan at the beginning, whether you're going to be donating that food to a food pantry, or using it for your school cafeteria, or having a harvest event where you're inviting community members to come in and enjoy the produce with you. Whatever it may be, look at those menus and see what you want to grow, so that you can easily feed right into the purpose of your garden harvest, okay? Another thing really important to talk about when thinking about what you want to plant is, well, what can you plant on a garden like this one behind me? Well, when you're growing indoors, it's quite different than when you're growing outdoors. Also, another key difference is that when you're growing with an aeroponic garden system, it's really different from the experience of growing in an outdoor garden with soil, traditionally, right? So a couple of differences. In an aeroponic garden, you cannot plant any root vegetables. Okay, so all root vegetables are out because the roots go inside this system, and it just wouldn't work out with the way that it's designed. Okay, so you can't plant any root vegetables, whether you're growing with aeroponics indoors or outdoors. The next topic is thinking about, well, what can you grow indoors on an aeroponic garden? Because if we're talking about schools, libraries, etc., you're likely growing indoors. Now, there aren't a lot of pollinators, maybe none at all, right, roaming inside these buildings. Not roaming, but flying around these buildings. And that's a big difference compared to growing with any sort of garden outdoors. So you could try to plant some plants that require pollinators. So these are things like tomatoes, eggplant, zucchini, things like that are flowering plants. Those all require pollinators. There's a much longer list than the few that I mentioned. You could try to grow those indoors and try to do some self-pollination, or not self-pollination, but have humans acting as bees and doing some pollination activities like that with your plants indoors. However, I have not seen high yields in my own experiences. So just know that if you're really looking to produce the most amount of produce in the shortest amount of time, I personally would not recommend planting any flowering plants that require pollinators when you're growing indoors, okay? Now you could take the lights off of this aeroponic garden and take it outdoors like we do in our home in the summer months, and then you could grow anything that grows above ground, and it'll thrive. But indoors, I like to stick to things like leafy greens, herbs, and lettuces. So with regard to growing with kids, I love to grow tons of lettuce, and butter crunch lettuce is my favorite lettuce to grow. It's really crispy. You can see some growing right behind me. This is really great for salad parties. And so in this case, you have the students grow different varieties of lettuce potentially, and then they all grow on a garden like this in about 5 to 6 weeks. They go from seed to harvest, a really nice big harvest. And then by bringing in different types of vegetables, raw vegetables like carrots, yellow bell peppers are great with for kids to try. cucumbers, tomatoes, etc., etc., building a little salad bar. They can then pick and choose and build their salads. And it's very simple, a really great experience for the kids, and it's a really quick turnaround with the lettuce. Another benefit for growing lettuce on these aeroponic gardens indoors is that when you cut lettuce, it will regrow a few times. So you'll cut it, harvest it the first time. 2 weeks later, approximately 2 weeks later, you'll get a new harvest that you can then cut again. And like I said, you usually get 2 to 3 cuts off of just the same seed that you originally planted. That's pretty cool and really valuable if you think about how many harvests you can fit in one school year, for example, or throughout the winter, wherever you're growing. Another thing that I really love to grow on these aeroponic gardens indoors is kale. And there's lots of varieties of kale. My favorite to grow is dino kale. It's actually called dino kale. If you've never heard of that, look it up. It's just really delicious and it's wonderful in smoothies. You can mix it with things like coconut milk, fresh cut pineapple, bananas, blend it up. It's just this beautiful green color, and anyone and everyone who tries it is always surprised that it tastes better than they thought it was going to taste. And so that is super fun. I really like doing that with kids in schools and other youth programs. But also, if you're helping a cafeteria or using this in a cafeteria, maybe you work in a cafeteria, whoever's watching, think of things like your favorite herbs to grow. I've worked with some chefs that really highlight how amazing it is to have fresh basil, fresh rosemary, fresh thyme, fresh oregano, etc., etc. All those herbs grow wonderfully indoors on aeroponic gardens like the one behind me. So those are some things to think about. You may now be dreaming of doing a pasta meal featuring basil from your garden and having lettuce on the garden to serve a salad with the pasta meal. Again, by planning these sorts of harvests ahead of time, before you and your students or youth ever start planting any seeds, is really going to make your garden that much more purposeful, and I challenge you to do that. I look forward to sending out another video soon about the planting process. Thanks for watching.